Mom, I need you to make Christmas dinner this year. There will be 15 people from Daphne's family, and you know how well you cook, Chloe said on the phone. Her voice was casual, like she was asking Gwen to pick up a carton of milk from the store. Gwen Croft, who was 72 years old, froze. The world felt like it had stopped for a moment. 72 years of life, 45 years of marriage, 30 years as a widow, and now this, cook for 15 people. 15 people, Chloe? And why do I have to take care of everything? When asked, holding the phone so tightly that her knuckles turned white. On the other end of the line, Chloe sighed like an annoyed child. Oh, Mom, because you have free time. We work all day. Besides, Daphne's house is too small for his whole family. Your house is perfect. It has a big dining room and a big kitchen. And honestly, nobody makes turkey like you do. Gwen closed her eyes and leaned against the wall in her kitchen. The same kitchen where she had cooked thousands of meals for Chloe when she was a little girl. The same kitchen where she had waited for Chloe to come home from parties as a teenager. The same kitchen where she had cried quietly after her husband's funeral. It felt like her daughter had forgotten who was the mother and who was the child. Chloe, sweetheart, I'm not your maid. I'm your mother. Please, Mom, don't be dramatic. It's just one family dinner. You can buy everything, and I'll pay you back later. Daphne's mom, Daphne, is bringing dessert. You only need to make the main dishes, side dishes, appetizers, and clean the house before and after. You know, the usual. The usual. Gwen almost laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. When had it become normal for her to act like a servant for her own family? When did she allow herself to be treated like her time, her energy, and her dignity didn't matter? And Mom, one more thing. Daphne's family is picky about food. Nothing spicy. Aunt Fiona can't eat gluten. Cousin Julian is vegetarian. And Daphne's grandma only eats very well-cooked meat. Oh, and get red wine. But don't spend too much money. It all adds up. Gwen didn't answer. Every word felt like a slap in the face. It wasn't just this Christmas dinner. It was years of little hurts and being taken for granted. Chloe talked about 15 people, like cooking for 15 strangers with special demands was as simple as making tea. And what will you be doing, Chloe, while I cook for your husband's whole family? Gwen asked. Oh, Mom, I'll be there to help, of course. I don't know. I'll set the table and serve drinks. Daphne will be busy with his family. You know how it is at family parties. Something inside Gwen broke. It wasn't her heart. It was her patience. It was her endless habit of saying yes. Her need to be the perfect mother who never complained. For 72 years, she had been the woman who solved everything, who smiled even when she was breaking inside. Chloe, let me ask you something. When was the last time Daphne and his family invited me to anything? When was the last time they treated me like family and not like free help? Mom, don't start. They appreciate you. It's just, well, you know how Daphne is. He's shy. Shy. Gwen thought. Daphne wasn't shy when he asked for money to fix his car. He wasn't shy when Gwen paid for dinner for all four of them. He wasn't shy when he used her house like a free hotel for his parents. All right, Chloe. I understand, Gwen said. Her voice was different now, calm but cold. Chloe noticed and quickly changed her tone, trying to sound sweet. So that's a yes, Mom? You'll take care of everything? It'll be such a beautiful Christmas. Everyone will remember how amazing you are at cooking. Gwen looked out her kitchen window. She saw the garden she had cared for all these years, the roses she planted when Chloe was a child, the rusty swing where she had pushed her granddaughter, who now barely called. Her whole world felt small, like she was only useful to others. Chloe, my love, I have news for you. Your husband's family is welcome to come for Christmas. Perfect. Because I'm going on a trip. You can take care of everything. I'm not a babysitter and I'm not an employee. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. Gwen could almost hear her daughter's panicked thoughts. She imagined Chloe's shocked face, her wide eyes at the thought of having to cook for 15 picky guests herself. What? Mom, you're joking. A trip? Where? With who? Mom, this is crazy. Everything is planned already. Planned by you, Chloe. Without asking me. Gwen hung up the phone. Her hands trembled as she set it down. She stared at it as if it was something strange. For the first time in decades, she had said no. For the first time in her life, she had set boundaries. It felt scary but also freeing. She walked to the living room. Photos of her life sat on the shelves. There was Chloe at 5 years old, smiling in a pink polka dot dress. There was Arthur, her late husband, looking handsome in his military uniform before life became full of bills, illness, and heartbreak. There were photos of Chloe's first Christmases, back when Gwen thought being a mother was enough to make her happy. When did this change? When did she stop being Gwen, the woman with dreams, and become just Chloe's mom? She remembered the day Arthur died. Chloe was only 15, and Gwen promised herself she would be both mother and father. She promised Chloe would never lack anything. She kept that promise. She worked long, painful shifts at the factory until her hands grew rough. She sold her wedding jewelry to pay for Chloe's college. She gave up finding love again because Chloe needed stability. She spent 30 years alone because her daughter came first. When Chloe married Daphne 5 years ago, Gwen thought she could finally live a little for herself. But she was wrong. "Mom, can you lend us $2,000 for Daphne's car?" they asked 2 months after the wedding. "Mom, can you watch the house while we're in Cancun for our late honeymoon?" "Mom, can you host Daphne's parents when they visit? Our house is too small." And Gwen always said yes, always smiled, always helped. She went to her bedroom and opened her nightstand drawer. Inside was her notebook where she carefully wrote down every family expense. She wasn't suspicious. It was just her habit as a hardworking woman who knew the value of money. The numbers shocked her. In 5 years, she had spent over $15,000 on Chloe and Daphne. $15,000 from her pension, her savings, money she saved for her own future medical needs. Daphne's birthday dinner, $100. Chloe's car repair, $800. Christmas gifts for everyone, $950. Flights for Chloe and Daphne, $600. Helping with their rent when Daphne lost his job, $1,200 for 3 months. And never once had they asked if she needed anything. Her roof had been leaking for 2 years, but she ignored it because Chloe always had emergencies. Gwen sat on the edge of her bed and cried for the first time in years. She didn't cry because she was sad. She cried because she was angry. Angry at Chloe for using her. Angry at Daphne for treating her like a free maid. Angry at herself for letting this happen. The phone rang. It was Chloe. "Mom, please. You can't do this to me. I already told Daphne you were cooking. He invited everyone. What am I supposed to do? I don't know how to cook for so many people." "Learn," Gwen said calmly. "Mom, this is crazy. Cancel your trip. Where are you even going? You can't travel alone at your age." At my age, like being 72 meant she couldn't make her own choices. Like being a grandma meant she had to stop being a woman with dreams. "Chloe, I have enough money to travel. The same money I've been spending on you for years." "What? We've never asked you for money." Chloe protested. Gwen felt sick at the lie. "Chloe, I have receipts. I wrote down every cent I've spent on you in the past 5 years." Silence. Then Chloe's voice, smaller. "Mom, that's different. We're family. Families help each other." "You're right, love. Families help each other. When was the last time you helped me?" Silence again. Chloe couldn't think of a single example. "I always call you, Mom. I'm always here for you," Chloe said weakly. "You call me when you need something." That's not the same. The truth hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Gwen walked to her window and looked out at the street she'd lived on for 40 years. The same street where she raised Chloe. The same street where she mourned Arthur. The same street where she waited for someone to treat her with respect. "Tomorrow, I'm going to the travel agency," she said. "You'll have to figure this out yourself." That night, Gwen couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of her house. The hum of the old refrigerator. The drip of the leaky bathroom sink she hadn't fixed because Chloe always needed money. The groaning of the old wood as the house settled. At 3 a.m., she got up and made herself chamomile tea. The same tea she used to give Chloe when she had nightmares. Now Gwen was the one with nightmares, but hers were real. They were called ungratefulness, emotional pain, and the awful feeling that she had wasted 30 years being useful to everyone but valued by no one. She sat at the kitchen table and remembered things she had buried deep. Not sweet memories, but the ones that hurt. She remembered the first time Chloe made her feel small. It was 3 years ago, at a neighbor's baby shower. Gwen had arrived in a pretty new dress, and someone said she looked elegant. Chloe had laughed and said, "Oh yes, Mom bought new clothes. I hope she didn't spend too much. You know how old people are with money." Old people. Like being old meant she was foolish. Like her 72 years of working and carefully managing money meant nothing. Gwen remembered many things about her life. She remembered the first time Daphne came to eat at her house when he had just started dating her daughter, Chloe. Gwen had cooked all day. She made chicken with green sauce, saffron rice, refried beans, handmade tortillas, and 3 kinds of salsa. Daphne ate without even looking up or saying, "Thank you." When he was done, he burped loudly and said, "It's all right." But my mom, Daphne, puts more chili in hers. Chloe laughed. Her own daughter laughed when her boyfriend insulted her mother's cooking. She remembered every Christmas when she cooked for 10, 12, sometimes even 15 people from Daphne's family. While she worked hard in the kitchen, they all sat in her living room watching TV and criticizing everything. "The house is too cold," they said. "The music is too loud. The decorations are too simple." And Chloe never defended her mother. Not even once. Gwen remembered the day she cut her hand badly while cooking for Daphne's birthday. She had to go to the emergency room. Chloe arrived 2 hours later. Not because she was busy, but because she had been at the beauty salon. Chloe looked at her mother's injured hand and said, "Oh, Mom, was all that drama necessary? It's just a few stitches." She said it like Gwen's pain didn't matter at all. She remembered the time she sold Arthur's engagement ring, the only thing she had left from her late husband, to lend Chloe $3,000 when Daphne lost his job. Chloe promised to pay her back in 3 months. That was 2 years ago, and Gwen never saw that money again. She remembered when she was very sick with the flu for a whole week. She was so ill she could barely get out of bed. Chloe didn't visit her once. But the very day Gwen felt a little better, Chloe called her to ask if she could water the plants at her house because she and Daphne were going on a romantic weekend trip. And Gwen remembered exactly the moment she stopped feeling like a person and started feeling like a servant. It was at Aunt Beatrice Croft's funeral, Arthur's sister. Gwen cried so much because she missed her sister-in-law. They had shared so many years of laughter and secrets. Chloe came over, but not to comfort her. She whispered, "Mom, stop crying so much. People will think you're overreacting. Also, I need you to pick up my dress from the dry cleaner tomorrow morning." Not could you or would you mind? It was an order, like she was an employee. Her tea grew cold in her hands as Gwen thought about the past 30 years. They were filled with small hurts, small humiliations, and many times when she swallowed her pride to keep peace in the family. The phone rang. "It was 4 a.m., Mom. Are you awake?" Chloe's voice sounded shaky. "I can't sleep. Daphne is furious with me. He says, 'How are we going to sort out dinner?' My parents already bought their plane tickets. You can't do this to me." Gwen listened but didn't feel the usual rush to help. For the first time ever, Chloe's problems sounded like problems she had made for herself. "Chloe, it's 4 in the morning. I know, but I can't sleep." "Mom, please, let's be reasonable. What if I pay for all the ingredients? What if I help you more in the kitchen?" Chloe acted like the problem was just not helping enough. But the real problem was that they had decided to use Gwen's house, her time, her energy, and even her money without asking her. "Chloe," Gwen said calmly, "the solution is simple. Have dinner at your house. But our house is too small. Then rent a hall. That costs money. And my time, my house, and my work don't cost money, do they?" There was a long silence. A silence that carried 30 years of pain and truths nobody had said out loud. "Mom, I don't know what's wrong with you lately. You're being strange. You're being selfish." Selfish. That word. The word used to make women feel guilty for having their own needs. "Chloe, I'm hanging up now. Don't call me again until you have a solution that doesn't involve me." "Mom." Gwen hung up the phone. Then she unplugged it from the wall. The silence after that was the most beautiful sound she had heard in years. The next morning, Gwen woke up with a strange feeling in her chest. At first, she thought it was worry or anxiety, but after a few minutes, she realized it was something she hadn't felt in decades. Freedom. For the first time in 30 years, she didn't have to wonder what Chloe needed, what problem she had to solve, or what sacrifice she had to make. She got dressed carefully, choosing her favorite cream blouse. Chloe always said it made her look old, but Gwen liked it. She brushed her hair while looking in the mirror. For the first time in years, she wasn't checking for wrinkles or gray hairs. She was looking at herself. There she was, Gwen Croft, 72 years old, a widow, a mother, but most importantly, a woman. She walked downtown with strong steps. Each block felt like a step toward freedom. She stopped at the travel agency between the pharmacy and the bakery she had visited for 40 years. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you?" the young woman at the counter asked kindly. Her name tag said Iris Miller. "I want to take a trip for Christmas," Gwen said. "That's wonderful. Do you have a place in mind? Are you traveling with family?" "I'm traveling alone," Gwen said proudly, "and I want to go as far away from here as possible." Iris didn't look surprised or pity her. She simply smiled and showed her pictures of beautiful places. "We have packages for solo travelers. Are you interested in beaches, mountains, or historic cities?" Gwen looked at the pictures: white sand beaches in Cancun, snowy mountains in Switzerland, old cobblestone streets in Spain. For years, she had only seen these places in magazines at the doctor's office, thinking trips like that were for other people who deserved happiness. "How much do you plan to spend?" Iris asked. Gwen thought about the $15,000 she had written down in her notebook. Money she had given to Chloe and Daphne over the years, never asking for it back. "I have $5,000, she said. And she realized this was the first time in years she was talking about money that belonged only to her. "With $5,000, we can do something amazing," Iris said. "How about a 3-week tour of Spain and Italy? You'd visit Madrid, Barcelona, Rome, Florence, and Venice. The hotels are beautiful, meals included, and guides speak English. It's perfect for someone who wants to rediscover herself." Rediscover herself. Gwen hadn't done anything for herself in decades. "I'm interested," she said. "When does it start?" "There's a trip leaving December 20th and returning January 10th. Exactly over Christmas, when Chloe expected her to cook for 15 people. Gwen almost laughed at how perfect it was. "Do you need to think about it?" Iris asked. "No," Gwen said firmly. "Book it now." Iris prepared the papers. Gwen felt both scared and excited. This was the most sudden decision she had ever made. But it felt right. For once, she was choosing her happiness over everyone else's expectations. Iris asked for her passport and a credit card for the deposit. Gwen took out her passport. She had renewed it last year, secretly hoping to travel someday. Chloe had laughed at her. "Why renew it, Mom? Where are you even going to go?" "To Spain and Italy," Gwen thought with a smile. When she walked out of the travel agency with her ticket, she felt like a completely new person. It wasn't just about the trip. It was about choosing herself. Her phone buzzed with a message from Chloe. "Mom, Daphne says if you don't cancel that ridiculous trip, he'll tell his whole family you're selfish and ruined Christmas. Is that what you want?" Gwen read the message twice, first with the old feeling of guilt, then with new clarity. Daphne, who never kept a job for more than 6 months. Daphne, who lived in her house for 3 months without paying rent. Daphne, who ate her food, used her water, electricity, and internet, now dared to call her selfish. She typed her reply. "Tell Daphne he can say whatever he wants. I'll be in Europe, so I won't hear him." Chloe texted back immediately. "Europe? Are you crazy? With what money?" "With my money," Gwen typed. Then she added, "The same money I've been spending on you for years." Her phone rang. Chloe was calling. For the first time in her life, Gwen chose not to answer. She turned off the phone and put it in her purse. She had better things to do. She needed to buy luggage. She needed to decide what to pack for Europe in December. She needed to start living the life she had delayed for 72 years. Walking to the luggage store, Gwen felt lighter than she had in decades. It was like she had carried a heavy backpack full of stones for years and finally put it down. For the first time in 30 years, she had something to look forward to. And it had nothing to do with making someone else happy. For the next 3 days, Gwen kept her phone turned off. Not because she was afraid of Chloe's calls, but because she had discovered something beautiful. Silence. Silence where she didn't have to explain her choices. Silence where she didn't have to prove she deserved happiness. She prepared for her trip like a teenager getting ready for her first big adventure. She bought a new wine-red suitcase, elegant and easy to carry. She bought a beige coat that made her look stylish, colorful scarves, and comfortable but cute shoes for walking on European streets. She went to a bookstore and bought a guide to Spain and Italy. She spent hours studying maps, circling places she wanted to see. The Prado Museum in Madrid, where she would see paintings she had admired only in books. The Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, a church so magical it looked like a dream. The Colosseum in Rome, where she would imagine life from 2,000 years ago. The canals of Venice, where she would sip coffee while watching gondolas float by. For the first time in many, many years, Gwen had plans just for herself. Plans that didn't revolve around anyone else's needs. On the fourth day, Gwen finally turned on her phone. She was shocked to see 47 missed calls from her daughter Chloe, 12 voice messages, and 23 text messages. She read them all carefully, but she felt surprisingly calm. "Mom," answered the phone. "Mom, this is ridiculous. You're acting like a child. Daphne says if you don't change your mind, we'll have to find another solution." "Mom, Daphne's family already bought their plane tickets. You can't ruin Christmas for so many people. I'm very disappointed in you. I never thought you'd be so selfish. Mom, please. I need you." All the messages sounded the same. First, Chloe got angry. Then she tried to make Gwen feel guilty. Then she acted like the victim. Gwen read them like she was reading a book on how to control someone's feelings. She realized something sad. For many years, this had worked on her. But not anymore. Gwen decided to call her best friend, Beatrice B. Walton, the only person who always told her the truth, even if it hurt. "Gwen, where have you been?" B asked when she picked up. "Chloe called me yesterday. She sounded hysterical, asking if I knew where you were." "B, I need to tell you something. And I need you to be honest with me." They met at their favorite corner cafe, the same place they had met every week for the past 10 years. B, now 74 years old, was still the same strong, straightforward woman she had always been. She had been widowed the same year as Gwen, but chose a very different life. B learned to drive, took painting classes, traveled with tour groups, and even had a few quiet romances. "You look different," B said as soon as she saw Gwen. "You look more like yourself." Gwen told B everything. Chloe's angry calls, the demand that she cook Christmas dinner for 15 people, her refusal, and the trip to Europe she had booked instead. B listened closely, nodding but not interrupting until Gwen finished. "And what do you think?" Gwen asked nervously. "Am I being selfish?" B let out a laugh that sounded like jingling bells. "Oh, Gwen, do you know how many years I've been waiting for you to have this talk with yourself?" "What do you mean?" Gwen asked. "What do I mean? I've watched Chloe treat you badly for years, and I've seen you let it happen. And every time I tried to warn you, you defended her. You'd say, 'But she's my daughter, B,' or 'she's going through a hard time,' or 'that's what mothers do.'" Sound familiar? Gwen's cheeks turned pink. It sounded very familiar. She had used those excuses for years to defend Chloe's behavior. "B, do you think I'm a bad mother for going on this trip for Christmas?" "I think you're a woman who's finally learning the difference between being a good mother and being a useful mother," B said firmly. "A good mother teaches her kids to be independent, grateful, and strong. A useful mother does everything for her kids until they forget how to do things for themselves." B's words felt like gentle rain falling on dry ground. Gwen realized she had been a useful mother, not a good one. She had solved all of Chloe's problems, and now Chloe didn't know how to solve her own. She had loved Chloe so much that Chloe took it for granted. But isn't a mom supposed to always be there for her children? Gwen asked softly. "Gwen, Chloe is 33 years old," B said. "She's not a child anymore. She's a grown woman with her own home and her own husband. If she can't organize a Christmas dinner without you doing everything, the problem isn't you. It's that you never taught her she could do it herself. But after Arthur died, I wanted to take care of her, Gwen said sadly. That was fine when she was 15, Bea said gently. But you kept doing everything for her when she was 20, 25, and even 30. Now she believes that's your job, to fix her life. You've made yourself into her full-time problem solver. Gwen stayed quiet, thinking about Bea's words. It hurt to realize she might have loved Chloe the wrong way. By protecting Chloe from everything, she had made her weak instead of strong. Bea, what if she never talks to me again? Gwen whispered. Then you'll finally know if she really loves you, or if she just loves what you do for her, Bea said softly. The truth hit Gwen hard. For years, she thought Chloe loved her because Chloe needed her. But real love didn't come with a list of demands. Real love wasn't about being useful. Do you know what's saddest about all this? Bea asked. Chloe doesn't even know who you really are. She only knows the version of you who solves problems and gives her money. She doesn't know Gwen, the woman, who has her own dreams and deserves respect. For the first time in days, Gwen felt like crying, but not out of sadness. She felt relief. Someone finally saw her. Someone finally understood she was more than just a mother. Go to Europe, Bea said, taking her hand. Go and find out who you are when you're not just someone's mom. The next day, Gwen decided to face Chloe one last time. She didn't want to go on her trip while there was a war of silence between them. She needed to set clear boundaries. She called Chloe. Mom, finally. Where have you been? I've been worried. Daphne says maybe you hit your head, and that's why you're acting so strange. There it was again. Fake concern followed by insults. Daphne, of course, thought she was losing her mind. Daphne, who had never truly cared for her. Chloe, I need you to come to my house, Gwen said firmly. We need to talk. Talk about what? About canceling your silly trip and fixing Christmas dinner like an adult? Chloe said, annoyed. Come at 3 p.m., Gwen said calmly. And come alone. Alone? Why? Daphne wants to talk to you too. He says you need to face reality. The reality of the situation, Gwen thought bitterly. This was coming from Daphne, the man who lived in her house for 3 months rent-free and now wanted to explain reality to her. Chloe, either you come alone, or you both don't come at all. I'm not negotiating. Chloe arrived with a frown, looking like a teenager being punished. She crossed her arms and sat on the couch, full of anger. Mom, this has to stop, Chloe said. You're acting like a spoiled child. The whole family is talking about you. What family, Chloe? Daphne's family? The family that has never invited me to anything? The family that only knows me as the free cook at their parties? That's not true. They appreciate you very much. Chloe said, when was the last time they asked how I was doing? When did they ever bring me a gift or invite me to lunch or even just call to talk? When asked calmly, Chloe opened her mouth but said nothing. They both knew the answer, never. Chloe, for 5 years I've been your husband's family's unpaid servant. And for 5 years, you've been okay with that. That's not true. We always treat you. Treat me with what, Chloe? Respect? Care? Value for my time? When interrupted, she walked to her desk and grabbed her expense notebook. She placed it on the table and turned to a page with numbers. $15,000, she said. That's what I've spent on you in 5 years. Money for my pension and savings. Money I should be saving for myself. Chloe's eyes widened. Mom, we never asked you to keep track. You're right, Gwen said. You never asked me. You just assumed it was yours to use. Because we're family, right? Families help each other, Chloe whispered. Then tell me, Chloe, how have you helped me in 5 years? Gwen asked. The room went quiet. The ticking of the kitchen clock was loud. I'm always here when you need me, Chloe said weakly. When have I needed you? Give me an example. More silence. When you were sick, Chloe muttered. When I had the flu last year. You didn't visit me even once. I later found out you were at the spa with Daphne's friends. Chloe's face turned red. I didn't know you were that bad. I sent you 3 messages saying I was very sick, Gwen said. You never replied. Mom, you can't nitpick every little thing, Chloe said. These aren't little things, Gwen said firmly. They're 30 years of little things. For 30 years, I've given you everything while you've given me nothing. And now that I've set boundaries, I'm the bad one. Chloe started to cry, but it wasn't a real cry. Gwen knew it was the same fake crying Chloe used to get her way. Mom, you can't leave for Christmas. You can't leave me alone with this problem, Chloe begged. Chloe, you made this problem, Gwen said calmly. You told Daphne's family I'd cook without asking me. You assumed my home, my time, and my money were yours. This isn't mine to fix, but I don't know what to do. Chloe cried. I don't know how to cook for so many people. Learn, Gwen said. Hire a caterer. Order food. There are 100 solutions that don't involve me. That costs money, Chloe said. And my work doesn't cost anything, does it? Gwen said quietly. Chloe wiped her tears and tried another trick. Mom, if you do this, Daphne will be mad at me. He says his family will feel unwelcome, and it'll be my fault. Then it's time Daphne learns to handle his own family instead of expecting his mother-in-law to do it, Gwen said firmly. You can't talk about my husband like that. Chloe snapped. I can and I will, Gwen said. Daphne is a 35-year-old man who has never planned a single family dinner in his life. He's always had women do it for him. First his mom, Daphne, and now me. When will he grow up? Chloe stood up angrily. I see what's happening. You're jealous. You're jealous of Daphne because I'm not just yours anymore. The accusation was so ridiculous Gwen almost laughed. I'm not jealous of Daphne, Chloe, she said calmly. I'm tired of being his unpaid servant. You know what, Mom? Fine. Go on your stupid trip. We'll handle Christmas without you. And when you come back and feel lonely, don't come crying to me, Chloe yelled. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the whole house shook. Gwen stood quietly in her living room, breathing deeply. For the first time in 30 years, she had spoken her truth, and the world hadn't ended. The days that followed were strangely calm. Gwen thought she would feel guilty. She thought she'd hear a voice in her head saying she had been too hard on Chloe. But that voice never came. Instead, she felt something she hadn't felt in decades, peace. She woke up each morning without worrying about Chloe's problems. She had quiet breakfast, reading the whole newspaper, something she hadn't done in years. She took long, slow walks in the park. She noticed things she had forgotten about, the beautiful fall colors on the trees, old couples feeding ducks, and children playing happily. One afternoon, Gwen was folding her clothes and packing her suitcase for a trip. She was very excited about it. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. She thought it was Chloe, her daughter. Maybe Chloe had come to say sorry, or maybe to try to convince her not to go on the trip. But when Gwen opened the door, she was surprised. It wasn't Chloe. It was Daphne, Daphne's mother. Daphne was 68 years old. She was always dressed very nicely and acted serious and proper. She had always been polite to Gwen, but cold, like a stranger. In the 5 years Gwen had known her, they had never talked for more than 10 minutes at a time. Gwen, I'm sorry for coming without calling first, Daphne said. But we need to talk. Of course, Daphne. Come in, Gwen said. Daphne came inside and sat on the sofa. She sat up straight, looking very serious, like she was there to do something she didn't really want to do. Gwen, Daphne started. Chloe told me about what's happening. She told me about your decision to take a trip during Christmas. Yes, Gwen said. I'm going to Spain and Italy. It's something I've wanted to do for years. I understand you want to travel, Daphne said. But don't you think this is bad timing? We already have everything planned for Christmas. My family has already bought plane tickets. Gwen studied Daphne's face. Daphne wasn't being mean, but she spoke as if her family's plans were more important than Gwen's. Daphne, can I ask you something? Gwen said calmly. In these 5 years, how many times has your family invited me to anything? Daphne looked surprised. She clearly wasn't expecting that question. Well, we've always appreciated you opening your home for family gatherings, Daphne said. That's not what I asked, Gwen said. I asked how many times you invited me somewhere, to your house, to a restaurant, or to a party, where I was the guest and not the hostess. Daphne didn't say anything. The silence was heavy. She looked down at her hands, uncomfortable. Gwen, Daphne said slowly, we always thought you enjoyed being the hostess. You're such a good cook and your house is so welcoming. Daphne, Gwen said firmly, For 5 years, I've cooked for your family every Christmas, every birthday, every special event. I've spent thousands of dollars on food, decorations, and gifts. I've cleaned my house before and after every gathering. I've washed mountains of dishes. And in 5 years, no one in your family has truly thanked me. But Daphne started to say. Last year at Christmas dinner, your sister Fiona said my turkey was too dry. Your brother-in-law, Warren, complained there wasn't enough beer. And your son, Daphne, burped at the table and then fell asleep on my sofa while I washed all the dishes, Gwen interrupted. Is that what you call appreciation, Daphne? Daphne's face turned red. She knew everything Gwen was saying was true, but she had never thought about it from Gwen's side before. Gwen, Daphne whispered, I didn't realize. Of course you didn't, Gwen said, her voice calm but strong. Because for 5 years, all of you have treated me like part of the furniture. I was the woman who cooked, cleaned, and paid for everything. But I wasn't treated like a person with feelings. That's not true, Daphne tried to argue. Daphne, tell me something, Gwen said. Do you know my favorite color? Do you know what kind of music I like? Do you know if I have hobbies or dreams that don't involve cooking for your family? Daphne looked shocked. Her eyes grew wide as she realized she knew nothing about Gwen as a person. I hadn't thought of that, Daphne said softly. You hadn't thought because, to your family, I'm not a person. I'm just someone who does things for you, Gwen said firmly. Daphne stayed quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was smaller and softer. What can we do to fix this? Nothing, Gwen said. You can't fix 5 years of disrespect with a simple sorry. And I don't want you to fix it anymore. Christmas dinner this year can be at a restaurant, at your house, at Chloe's house, or anywhere else. But not here. For 5 years, you all assumed my home would always be open for your gatherings. This year, you'll learn to make other plans. I know we've made mistakes, Daphne said sadly. But don't you think cutting off contact is extreme? I'm not cutting off contact, Gwen said. I'm setting boundaries. I'm telling you that I won't be your unpaid cook and maid anymore. Daphne stood up to leave, but before she got to the door, she turned around. Can I ask you something personal? Of course, Gwen said. Have you ever been happy doing all of this for us? Daphne asked. The question felt like a punch in Gwen's stomach. Not because it was mean, but because it was honest. No, Daphne, Gwen said softly. I haven't been happy. I've been so busy being useful that I forgot how to be happy. Daphne nodded slowly, like she finally understood something important. I hope you find that happiness on your trip. When Daphne left, Gwen sat in her kitchen with a warm cup of tea. For the first time ever, someone from Daphne's family had admitted that she deserved to be happy. It was a small step, but it meant something. She looked at the calendar. Only 5 days until her flight. 5 days until she could leave behind 30 years of being the woman who solved everyone else's problems. She was ready to start being a woman who lived her own life. The phone rang. It was her friend, B. How's everything, Gwen? I think I'm finally learning the difference between being needed and being respected, Gwen said. And how does that feel? B asked. Gwen smiled. A smile so real that even though no one could see it, it could be felt through the phone. It feels like freedom. The day before her flight, Gwen woke up with a feeling she hadn't had since she was a little girl waiting for Christmas morning. She had everything ready. Her suitcases packed neatly, her documents carefully put in a special folder, and the perfect outfits for every place she wanted to visit. But more important than all of that, she had something she had lost years ago: hope. She took her time getting ready that morning. She chose her favorite dress, a terracotta-colored one that Chloe always said was too flashy. Gwen didn't care. She put on her makeup, not to look younger or hide her wrinkles, but to celebrate herself. Each line on her face told a story, and for the first time in years, she was proud of that story. She sat down for breakfast with her favorite coffee and a simple meal, enjoying it as if it were a special moment. Then the doorbell rang again. Her heart beat faster. She thought maybe it was Chloe coming to say sorry. But it wasn't Chloe. At the door stood an older man holding a bouquet of flowers. He was dressed nicely and looked kind. Mrs. Gwen Croft? He asked politely. Yes, that's me, Gwen said, surprised. My name is Alistair Finch. I'm Iris's father, Iris, the travel agent who booked your Europe trip, the man explained. Gwen blinked, confused. Why would Iris's father be at her door? Iris told me about you. Alistair continued with a warm smile. She said you're a brave woman, traveling alone for the first time. Well, I'm also going on the same trip around the same dates, with almost the same plans. Gwen felt her cheeks grow warm. I was wondering, Alistair said carefully, if you'd like some company. Not for romance or anything like that, he added quickly, noticing Gwen's surprised face. Just someone to share a meal with sometimes. Someone to take your picture when you're standing in front of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Gwen was speechless. This was so unexpected. For months, she had imagined this trip as her chance to be independent and enjoy being alone. But here was Alistair, offering friendly company without pressure. I don't know what to say, Gwen admitted. Iris showed me a picture of you, Alistair said. Not to invade your privacy, but I told her I hoped to meet interesting people on my trip. She told me you had a smile that showed both strength and sadness. That description made me want to meet you. Gwen looked at Alistair properly. He was probably around 75, with neatly combed silver hair, kind eyes behind glasses, and a calm, dignified way of standing. He wore a soft brown sweater and nicely pressed pants. He wasn't classically handsome, but he radiated warmth and respect. Can I ask why you're traveling alone? Gwen asked. My wife died 2 years ago, Alistair said softly. She had cancer. Before she passed, I promised her I wouldn't stay at home feeling sad forever. I told her I'd travel, see the world, and live for both of us. This is my first big trip without her. Gwen felt connected to him right away. Both of them were escaping their old lives, trying to rediscover who they were. And what do you hope to find in Europe? She asked. Alistair smiled gently. I hope to find the man I was before I became just Eleanor's husband. I hope to remember who I was before I spent all my time caring for someone else. His words echoed in Gwen's heart. That was exactly how she felt. Alistair, she said honestly, this trip is very important to me. It's the first time in 30 years I'm doing something just for myself. I don't want it to turn into something romantic. Mrs. Gwen, Alistair said kindly, I'm not looking for romance either. I just want to share a meal, a few laughs, maybe have someone tell me if I have food stuck in my teeth after eating pasta in Rome. Gwen laughed, a real, warm laugh she hadn't heard from herself in years. You know what, Alistair, she said. I think I'd enjoy that. Really? Alistair said with a happy smile. Yes, but only if we each pay for our own meals, Gwen said firmly. No old-fashioned rules about the man paying for everything. I have my own money and I plan to use it. Alistair grinned. Mrs. Gwen, I think we'll get along very well. He handed her the flowers, white and yellow daisies, simple and beautiful, and gave her his card with his phone number and hotel details in Madrid. Then he left. Gwen stood in her kitchen, holding the flowers, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like a teenager again. Not because she was falling in love. She wasn't, but because someone saw her as more than just a useful mom or grandma. Someone saw her as an interesting woman. She put the daisies in a vase and placed them on the table. Tomorrow she would fly to Madrid. For the first time in decades, she didn't know what would happen next. But instead of being scared, she was excited. The phone rang. It was Chloe. Mom, your flight's tomorrow, right? Chloe asked. Yes, tomorrow, Gwen replied. There was a long pause. Mama, I don't want you to leave angry with me, Chloe said softly. I'm not leaving angry, Chloe, Gwen said gently. I'm leaving free. Can we talk when you come back? Chloe asked. We can talk when you're ready to truly listen, Gwen replied. Another pause. I love you, Mom. I love you too, Chloe. But I'm not going to confuse love with being available to you all the time anymore. After hanging up, Gwen made herself a simple dinner, just soup and salad. She ate slowly, enjoying every bite, knowing that tomorrow she'd be eating dinner in Madrid. For the first time in 30 years, she had something that belonged only to her, a future full of possibilities. 3 weeks later, Gwen sat at a small table on a sunny terrace in Barcelona, looking out at the sparkling Mediterranean Sea. She was sipping a cup of café con leche that tasted exactly like she dreamed it would. The warm sun kissed her face as she wrote in a brand new journal she had bought in Madrid. She hadn't kept a journal since she was a teenager. She wrote in careful handwriting, Day 21 in Europe. Today I understood something very important. Happiness is not a prize you get after years of sacrifice. Happiness is a choice you make every single day. Just then, Alistair walked up with 2 ice creams, lemon for her and chocolate for himself. For 3 weeks, Gwen and Alistair had become close friends. Their friendship felt easy and comfortable. Alistair was the perfect travel friend. He was smart but never showed off. He was funny but never silly. He cared about her but gave her space when she needed it. They had walked through the beautiful Prau Museum together and gotten lost while exploring the streets of Rome. They laughed when Alistair tried to order food in Italian, but with his Spanish accent, accidentally asked for shoes with cheese instead of pasta with cheese. "Are you writing your life story?" Alistair asked one day as he sat in a chair next to her. "I'm writing my new story," Gwen said with a smile. "The one that begins at 72. During their trip, her phone rang many times. Most of the messages were from her daughter Chloe. Some messages sounded desperate, some were angry, and some tried to make Gwen feel guilty. At first, Gwen read all the messages and felt bad. But slowly something changed. She started to understand that Chloe's problems were not her emergencies to fix. Chloe needed to learn her own lessons. The last message Chloe sent was different. It said, "Mom, we had to cancel Christmas dinner. Daphne and I argued over who should organize it, and we decided we weren't ready. His parents are disappointed, but they're not upset with you. I think I understand now why you left. I hope you're okay." Gwen read that message 3 times. She didn't feel happy or proud. She just felt calm. She knew she had done the right thing. Chloe was finally learning that actions have consequences, and no one could always fix her problems for her. "What are you thinking about?" Alistair asked, seeing Gwen deep in thought. "I was thinking that for 70 years, I believed people only loved me because I was useful," Gwen said softly. "I thought love had to be earned by doing everything for others. Now I know true love doesn't need to be earned. People who really love you don't disappear when you stop being useful." Alistair nodded. Over the 3 weeks, they had shared many deep talks. He told her about his late wife Eleanor and how he had spent years taking care of her. In the process, he had forgotten who he was as a person. Gwen told him about her 30 years of being a perfect mother until she realized that being perfect made her invisible. "You know what's funny?" Gwen said. "I haven't cooked a single meal for anyone this whole trip, and I don't miss it." "What do you miss?" Alistair asked. "I miss the version of me before I became just a mom," Gwen said. "The woman who read books for fun, who had her own thoughts about movies, who dreamed of traveling. That woman was asleep for 30 years, but she wasn't gone. The sun was setting over the Mediterranean Sea, painting the sky with colors no one could name. Tomorrow was her last day in Europe before going back home. But now home didn't sound like a trap. It sounded like a safe place where she could be the woman she had rediscovered. "Alistair, can I tell you a secret?" she asked. "Of course," he said. "When I was young, I wanted to be an art teacher. I never told anyone because it felt silly. After I got married, then Chloe was born, then Arthur died. I always had reasons to put off my dream. But now I think 72 is not too late." Alistair smiled. "I have a secret, too. I always wanted to play the piano, but Eleanor used to say we were too old to learn new things." "What are you going to do about it?" Gwen asked. "I'm going to buy a piano," Alistair said. They both laughed. It was the happy laugh of 2 people who realize life doesn't end when you're older. Sometimes life really begins again. That night, Gwen stayed awake in her hotel room, watching Barcelona's city lights. Tomorrow she would fly home, but she wasn't the same woman who had left. She was no longer just Chloe's mom or Daphne's helper. She was Gwen Croft, a woman who had learned that saying no wasn't selfish, it was a way to survive. Her phone buzzed. A message from her friend B read, "How's the new Gwen?" Gwen smiled and wrote back, "The new Gwen is learning that it's never too late to start a new life." The next day, as she sat on the plane, she looked out at Europe disappearing below the clouds. She wrote in her journal, "Today I don't need permission to live. Today I know that respect is not begged for, it's something you demand." Today I understand that freedom is not doing everything you want, but refusing to do things you don't want. Tomorrow, when I land at home, I'll start the rest of my life." She closed the journal and leaned back in her seat. For the first time in 72 years, her future belonged only to her. It wasn't revenge. It was freedom, and it felt like flying. 6 months later, Gwen was sitting in her new art studio, her hands covered in colorful paint. Her heart felt lighter than it had in years. At 73, she was learning to mix colors and paint landscapes. She never thought she'd have this chance. Her house felt different now. It wasn't a place where she waited for calls from people needing help. It was her own peaceful space. Every corner was hers. Every decision was hers. The silence no longer scared her. It felt warm, like a hug. She and Chloe still talked, but their relationship had changed. At first, it was hard. There were tears, anger, and blame. But something shifted when Gwen stopped defending herself and just stood by her decisions. Chloe was learning to see her as a person, not as a tool to solve problems. Chloe was getting better at asking, "How are you, Mom?" before sharing her troubles. She even invited Gwen to lunch without expecting her to pay. These were small changes, but they meant a lot. Daphne was still Daphne, but Gwen knew now that he wasn't her problem. Chloe was learning that her husband's problems were not her mother's responsibility. It was a hard lesson, but a necessary one. Alistair visited Gwen once a week. They drank tea and shared stories from their classes. He had bought a piano, just as he said he would, and was learning to play. Sometimes they went to the movies like two good friends. Gwen didn't know if they'd ever become more than friends, but for the first time, that not knowing felt exciting, not scary. She had learned something important. Loving herself was not selfish, it was a way to stay alive inside. For years, she thought love meant giving everything away, believing she'd be loved more if she sacrificed more. Now she understood that real love happens when people respect each other's individuality. Her savings account had grown too. Once she stopped being the family's bank, she finally saved money for herself. She used her savings to remodel her house, take art classes, and enjoy little luxuries she once thought were silly, like a monthly massage, new books, and fresh flowers for her table. Now every day felt like a celebration. The most surprising thing she learned was that she was never invisible. She had simply stopped seeing herself. Once she started valuing herself, others did too. Her neighbors greeted her warmly. The butcher asked about her paintings. The librarian saved art books for her. She realized that setting boundaries doesn't ruin relationships. It either makes them stronger or shows which ones weren't worth keeping. Some days she felt sad for the years she had lost, for the woman she used to be who thought she was indispensable, but was actually taken for granted. But that sadness didn't stop her anymore. She accepted it, held it gently, and let it go. The past had shaped her, but the present was hers. She looked at her hands as she wrote in her journal. These hands had cooked thousands of meals, cleaned up messes, and signed checks for other people's dreams. Now they created paintings, wrote her own thoughts, and clapped for her own achievements. The woman who boarded the plane to Madrid was a tired, forgotten person. The woman who returned was Gwen Croft, an artist, a traveler, a friend, and a strong woman who didn't need anyone's approval to feel worthy. She still woke up each day not knowing exactly what would happen. But that mystery was thrilling, not frightening. She had finally learned the greatest lesson of all. She deserved to write her own story, and it was never too late to change the ending. If you like my story, Gwen said with a smile, you can help me by sending a super thanks so I can write more. What about you? What would you do if you were in my shoes? Tell me in the comments. I love reading your thoughts. Oh, and tell me where you heard this story. If you want to hear more life stories like mine, like this video and subscribe to my channel. I have many more stories waiting for you. Big hugs and see you soon.